Over the last several days, I mentioned ability scores a couple times, and today we're going to talk about what those are and how to make them. Welcome back, fellow Game Masters. I'm Richard Quiner. Today we're getting into the numbers and the math of Dungeons & Dragons by talking about ability scores. Now, ability scores are a set of numbers that give you a numeric value to certain physical or mental traits that your character might have. And there are six different ability scores that you're going to be dealing with. These different ability scores are going to be strength, or your physical athletic prowess, dexterity, your agility or speed and accuracy, constitution, meaning your endurance or stamina or toughness, intelligence is your pure mental intelligence, your smarts that you might have, your wisdom, which is more of the street smarts and interacting with the world around you kind of intelligence or kind of smarts, and charisma, which deals with your confidence and verbal skills and leadership abilities. The important thing to know as we're getting into these ability scores is that your character's race, as I mentioned before, also does give you bonuses to your ability scores, which will come into play. But what I'm going to explain first is kind of the basic, how do you get the basic numbers that you're going to use for your character. There are two main methods that you can use. There is a third that's kind of a variant, a weird method. I don't like that one, so I'm just going to explain the two that are most common used. First up is the method they use in Dungeons & Dragons Adventure League, and it's called the array system. The array system is which Wizards of the Coast, the creator of Dungeons & Dragons, they give you the 6 numbers you need to deal with, which are 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. You can write those down if you need to. You take those numbers and assign them to each one of these ability scores, whether it's strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, etc. You get to assign the number from that array to the ability. And then after that, you go to your race information and you add the bonuses that your race gives you on certain ability scores. So if you are a Dragonborn, for instance, you will usually get a bonus to your strength, which you can then add to your strength number. The array is a very simple method. It's very fast. You don't have to deal with dice, and it's just one and done, and you're done creating your character. And all the characters created using the array system are kind of equal in power, in numbers, because they all use the same base numbers. That's why they use it for Adventure League, so you don't have someone who's very overpowered compared to the rest of the party. The other method is one I do enjoy using in my home games, and it is rolling for your stats. Now, rolling for the stats gives you a chance to have a broader variety of numbers. You can be from 18 all the way down to 3, so it can give you a pretty broad range of statistics that you can have that can affect your character and how you play them. In order to roll for your ability scores, you're going to need a 6-sided dice, a pencil, and a piece of paper. That's basically it. You're going to take that 6-sided dice and you're going to roll it 4 times and write down the number you roll each time. After you have 4 numbers, scratch off the lowest of the 4, leaving you with 3 numbers. Then you add those 3 numbers together and write that down. Repeat that process 5 more times until you have 6 numbers. You're going to take those 6 numbers and then assign each one to an ability score based on strength, charisma, intelligence, dexterity, whichever you choose. You're just going to assign them, and then you are going to add your racial bonuses to those scores. So you can see how this can be pretty powerful in a game. You could roll potentially 3 6s and a 2, and then that will give you an ability score of 18 right off the bat, which is higher than you will get ever with the array system. At the same time, the downside of that is you could roll 4 1s on accident, and then that could leave you with a 3 for your ability score, which is a huge disaster. It's very weak, not very useful. It is fun to play with low ability scores, which is why in the array it gave you the 8, which gives you a weakness, but rolling for it gives you a much broader spectrum, which is why I enjoy it. As you're assigning your scores, you should remember that each class uses a certain ability more than the others. For example, a rogue often uses dexterity more than any other ability scores, so you usually want to put your highest number in the ability score that is most used by your class to give you the best chance of success. If I was creating a rogue using the array system and I decided to put an 8 in my dexterity, that would kind of defeat the purpose of playing a rogue, since they're supposed to be sneaky and fast and agile. So keep that in mind as you're creating your character, and each class will explain that to you also as you read through the book or the basic rules. It will tell you what is the most important stat for that class. So keep that in mind and try to make a character that works well and is fun to play for that class. After you have your ability scores, you're going to have to figure out modifiers. Now, modifiers are kind of a small number that you add to your rolls throughout the game, and they are determined by your ability scores. If you look in the player handbook, there is a table that tells you a range of ability scores, for example, 8 and 9 and 10 and 11, and it tells you what the ability modifier will be for that. It's a much smaller number. So for example, 10 and 11 will usually equal 0. 12 and 13 will equal a +1, and it will go up like that up to about 20, or up to a +5, I should say, which will be a score of 20. So if your ability score equals 20, then you will have a +5 modifier, and that number is something you will use during the game as you're playing in order to roll the dice and do some math with it. So there you have it, a very basic, short, simple way of understanding ability scores, what they're about, and how you can create your own.